I'm feeling great now, to be honest with you. If anything, my body's had a little bit more rest than what it normally gets. Really lucky with the symptoms what I had. I had like a minor cold. Frustrating thing for me was just having to isolate, and so that means I was missing out on sparring and whatnot. To be 100%, which needed to push the date back a little bit.
Welcome to Jabs on Dazn. Sergio, I had a whole nother intro set, but you are literally the worst person with technology I have ever met.
Listen, I don't get paid to be a technologist. Is that the word? I don't know electronics, but I'll beat your butt, I'll tell you that.
We start with Canelo Alvarez, who will fight Callum Smith in less than a month. While Alvarez is a considerable favorite, some think beating Smith will be a tall task. Veteran trainer Buddy McGirt, who trained Sergey Kovalev for his fight with Alvarez last year, told The Athletic, "I think that Canelo bit off more than he can chew this time. Smith comes from a fighting family, and he has a very good trainer, and to top it off, he can fight. He's the real deal." Sergio, is Callum Smith a legitimate threat to Canelo Alvarez?
In the words of Lennox Lewis, absolutely. And if anyone should know, it's Buddy McGirt. He knows what he's seen, and he already seen it from that corner. Callum Smith's going to be a tall task, like you said, pun intended. But breaking the distance and finding the range is going to take time and rounds. Just like Canelo, the first half of that fight with Kovalev, you may not agree, but he kind of had his hands full, if not struggled, to get in the inside. And mind you, Kovalev is 3 inches shorter than Callum Smith. So bring all that into the mix, and I'm telling you, man, Callum Smith is a real deal. Canelo will have his hands full.
No, I agree. I think people are way too focused on Callum Smith's ugly performance against John Ryder. He won the fight, but people didn't like the way he fought. But he has had far more good performances than bad. I mean, the knockout win over George Groves to win the World Boxing Super Series, the knockout of Hassan Nadam on the undercard of Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz. These are good opponents and quality wins. Now, I think he's the underdog against Canelo, but he has a massive size advantage. He has real power in both hands. If Canelo wins, he's going to have to get on the inside, and that's going to require him potentially to take a significant amount of punishment from a big puncher in Callum Smith. So, look, you can argue what the best fight out there is for Canelo Alvarez, but at 168 pounds, I don't think there's any bigger threat than Callum Smith.
We've seen John Ryder give the taller Callum Smith problems as the shorter fighter, and we've seen a taller fighter in Kovalev give issues to Canelo as the shorter fighter. So we already seen both sides. Callum Smith is younger than Kovalev, taller than Kovalev, fresher than Kovalev, and I believe hungrier than Kovalev. This is going to be a difficult fight for many reasons, and I'm excited about this one for many reasons. I'm telling you, Chris, hands full. Canelo's going to have his hands full.
You have to stop with the Kovalev gave Canelo problems. The punch stats say you're wrong. The judges' scorecards say you're wrong. And oh yeah, the knockout says you're wrong.
First half of the fight. I'm talking about the first 7 rounds. That's all I'm talking about.
Moving on, Bob Arum and Terrence Crawford have been in a war of words all week. After Arum told The Athletic, "Do we want to keep him? I could build a house in Beverly Hills on the money I've lost on him in the last 3 fights. A beautiful home." Crawford said this on the Ak and Barak show.
If he feel that way, you know what I mean, he can release me now. You know what I mean? Like, he can just release me. If you feel like you don't have no, you know what I mean, I'm not an asset to your company anymore, you know what I mean, you can release me right now. You don't have to wait till after a Spence fight. Why do you have to wait till after a Spence fight? You know what I mean? Release me now, and you don't have to lose any money no more.
Sergio, how should Crawford proceed after Bob Arum's comments?
Bud should bounce from Top Rank. No hard feelings, it's strictly business. And we've seen this with Bob Arum before with his star fighters. Oscar De La Hoya, once he got to a point of his popularity, He branched out and started Golden Boy Promotions. Floyd Mayweather started Money Mayweather Promotions and aligned himself with Al Heyman. Miguel Cotto is another fighter. So we've seen this before. We know what Bud Crawford needs to do. He needs to go to PBC, align himself with Al Heyman, and make the most amount of money and make the biggest fights possible while he still has the prime of his career and the prime of his years. He's 32 years old. He's about to hit, he's already in his prime, but he needs to get that prime money. And no better way to do it than to cross the street.
Look, there shouldn't be a street, first and foremost. I mean, PBC and Top Rank worked together earlier this year for a successful event that featured Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. There's no reason why they couldn't work together to create another successful mega event between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence. That's number one. Number two, look, Crawford has to calculate what things mean to him. Does he want to make a lot of money for less meaningful fights, or does he want to roll the dice, fight his way out of the contract, and go over to PBC in the hopes that Errol Spence will eventually fight him? Because I don't know there's any guarantee, Sergio, that if Terrence Crawford got out of his contract tomorrow, we would see Crawford versus Spence in the early part of 2021. Both Crawford and Spence have said, I'm the A side of this fight. I deserve 60% of the revenue from this fight. Both guys are saying that. So that tells me there are more problems that need to be resolved than just the politics of boxing. If Crawford wants to stay affiliated with Top Rank, he can make good money. He can be in some decent fights. I like a Terrence Crawford versus Patrick Teixeira fight at junior middleweight if Teixeira wins his fight against his mandatory challenger early next year. I really like a fight between Terrence Crawford and the winner of Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez. That is a terrific showdown, potentially for the second half of 2021. So Crawford's going to have to decide what's important to him as he enters not the twilight of his career, but the back end of his prime years.
You know what's important in his career right now, in the twilight or prime, whatever you want to call it? Money. And the most money that he's going to make is where the best welterweights are, and that's with PBC. So whether you want to call it a street or the road, why did the boxer cross the road? To make more money.
And finally, Ryan Garcia Luke Campbell has been rescheduled for January 2nd. This means the fight was delayed only 4 weeks after Campbell was diagnosed with COVID-19. When I asked Luke about his recovery, this is what he said.
I'm feeling great now, to be honest with you. If anything, my body's had a little bit more rest than what it normally gets. You know, I was really lucky with the symptoms what I had. I had like a minor cold and didn't really get any symptoms. So obviously the frustrating thing for me was just having to isolate. And so that means I was missing out on sparring and whatnot. So for us to be 100%, we just needed to push the date back a little bit.
Sergio, is Campbell coming back from a serious illness too soon?
Look, I work in the sweet science, but I'm no scientist. But from what I hear, with this disease, it doesn't affect the young and the healthy. It certainly is not going to affect professional athletes and fighters. So, no, I don't think he is coming back too early because, if anything, he's already experienced setbacks, whether they're physical setbacks, where injury or sickness. So this is not going to affect Luke Campbell. If anything, it's going to affect Ryan Garcia. He's younger and hasn't really had to run into these problems of cancel and postpone fights and having to wait and having, being up, training, and then having to calm down and taper down and restarting it again. That could be a mental thing for the younger Garcia. So it's not going to be a problem for the veteran in Campbell. This might be a problem for Garcia, though.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Alexander Povetkin had to cancel his fight against Dillian Whyte because he tested positive for COVID-19, and that fight was pushed back multiple months so Povetkin could overcome the illness and then get back into a full training camp. Luke Campbell just seems to be shaking this illness and getting right back into the mix. In fact, that's exactly what he's doing. Now, I believe December 19th would have been too fast. A 2-week delay would have been too quick when you have an illness that is this significant. And look, people do recover. The vast majority of people do recover from coronavirus, but it takes something out of them. It forces them not to work and not to train for multiple weeks, and that's what it did to Luke Campbell. So I think he's in a decent range to be able to get himself back into peak condition. But more than anything, Sergio, I think Luke Campbell is doing this because he's afraid he might lose the fight. I mean, there were some questions about whether Ryan Garcia would take a fight with Luke Campbell in the first place. If Luke Campbell doesn't agree to fight on Ryan Garcia's timetable, Garcia could just move on. I mean, I've talked to Ryan. He said, look, bring me Javier Fortuna in a fight early next year. Bring me Jorge Linares, a fight that people wanted to see in the middle of this year. So I think Luke Campbell's doing this because if he doesn't, he might not have a payday that comes with it.
And mentally, this would affect Ryan Garcia more because he hasn't had to go through those setbacks in a younger career. Luke Campbell has a longer time in the business and a longer time as an amateur. He's been through everything already.
Wait. January 2nd. Does this mean I have to spend New Year's Eve with you?
Thanksgiving, my birthday, Christmas, Hanukkah. Get ready, Mannix.
I spent your 40th birthday with you somewhere over Saudi Arabia. That was enough for me.